push all the stuff aside in my studio to make this beautiful presenting area for you.
It looks great.
Thanks.
Well done. I mean, I think the like reality though is that people probably love seeing the mess and chaos of a studio because it's, you know, not something you see very often.
Yeah, well, it's a real thing. So
I remember one time Josh Dannon was doing like a write-up for Printeresting, which is a website I wish was still
yes,
around.
Me too.
And see, love a chaotic studio. I know, Brittany, you're the best. And so he was coming down and he was gonna do like a little piece about our shop. And we like generally keep our shop pretty clean because it's like used by people that aren't us, so we have to like set an example.
Yeah.
But I think we like especially cleaned it up because we knew he was gonna be like taking pictures and stuff. And he was like, "Oh, it's kind of too tidy. Like it doesn't look like anybody works in here ever." Which is not really the message we're trying to send. We were like, "Well, too bad. It is what it is." So
Yeah.
but I think it's true. Like messy surfaces.
They take better Instagram photos, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But we forgive you for having a clean corner in your new studio space. So
yes.
you just moved in, so you got to give yourself a little break, you know?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. So I guess I can show you...
well, do you want to introduce yourself first?
Oh, I guess I should do that.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Landon Perkins. I am a printmaker, an artist. I currently, me and my wife about, a year and a half ago, moved down to Arkansas, and I'm also work full-time as a preparator at Crystal Bridges Museum of Art. And I met Chrissy and Kyle at I think it was in Portland at SGCI.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and then I think we just kind of nerded out and then became friends. And yeah.
That's a good summary. Yeah.
Yeah, I think long story short.
We did a fun collaboration, you know, what we've learned to be 2 years ago now.
Yeah.
But that was really enjoyable, and I wish we could do it again, maybe one day.
Yeah. I actually have that framed over here in a corner somewhere.
Oh, nice. We have it. Well, you framed it for us, and we have it downstairs.
I forgot. Yeah.
By our front door.
Nice.
I love that. I feel like it's probably getting a little sun bleached because it's very sunny in that area, but you know.
It's all archival.
It's good to test the inks and see how they stand up. Yeah, so I've been sharing lots of like your print work for promoting this, but you also like do sculpture and like painting as well. Well, you're kind of getting back into painting, I guess.
Yeah. I'm currently trying to explore a lot of the prints I do as paintings, and also just wrote a grant to explore them, you know, with metal etching and plasma cutting. So hopefully if that gets funded, I might be doing some more of that. But we will, cool. We'll see. Just trying to, you know, explore different mediums. So it's always fun.
Yeah. The best way.
Yeah. So, trying to keep learning.
Yeah. I feel like we do the same thing. Always trying to keep learning something. Right now we're just learning video stuff.
Yeah, our COVID time has been spent like learning how to do video editing, which is a skill that I thought that I would kind of close the book on when I graduated from high school. Yeah, I did a bit of that then, and then I didn't think I'd ever go back to it, and here I am.
Nice.
So with flat files, we usually will do back and forth. So you share an art, we share an art. Sometimes the art has information that we actually know about it, and sometimes it doesn't. It really, it's, you know, it's a bit of a free-for-all. And sometimes it's just what you think the art is about, and sometimes it's what you know the art is about. And it's pretty relaxed. And we wanted to like set up a way to like encourage that community that we had like created here, and still like continue the like conversations that we would normally have around the dining room table, where like everybody would be sitting together eating dinner and talking about like their process and the work that they're making, and then also the work that inspires them. So
Yeah.
this has been a nice way to keep that sort of dialogue going, with the added bonus of being able to actually see the work people are sometimes talking to us about, which is actually really fun. And then we share all of the work in our stories afterwards and keep them on like a highlight reel for a little period of time. And then we're archiving all of these conversations on our Patreon page.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Since my studio is still a little bit of a mess, I have a huge, basically what my flat file set of all my prints I've collected over the years is still packed away. But what I have for you guys is some framed works that me and my wife lived with and continue to live with. And I'm like, kind of just been more reflecting on them lately. And I mean, I sort of know what they're about, but I'll give you my interpretation. And
that sounds perfect.
Yeah. So first off, I'll start with this one. Let me redo this.
Got a nice easel set up.
Yeah. I'll probably, can I flip this around to do details? Hold on.
Yeah.
You can see my messy studio we talked about.
Love it.
Right now. Yeah.
So nice.
There's some paintings. Okay. So this piece is by a fellow Syracuse grad named Nicholaus Arnold. And he had me down right when I graduated, I think at Kent State University, to give a lecture and talk, and I traded for this. But basically what it is it's on a piece of paper right here, nice deckled, and it's like a modeled rocket ship that you'd get like as a kid. And then it's kind of like, I think it's either charcoal or some type of like spray paint that's like drawn on it, that's bursted up. And I know his practice, a lot of it is performance art where he'll like dress up as an astronaut and go around town and kind of do these performance pieces. And I've seen a few of these other ones that are like larger that he does. But I really just love this work because, let me rearrange this real quick. Sorry. I really love this work because I think it does, for me, such a great conversation about like what is print a little bit. A lot of us like always get tied down, I think, in like the 2D aspect of it. And I'm really always been interested in like, print blurring the boundaries and practice. And I think I'm personally really interested in that larger conversation where like art can seamlessly like blend between all these practices and create something new. And that's like, I'm always like blown away, I think, by artists where I'm like, how did you do that? Versus like, seeing an etching and just being like, wow, you made a beautiful etching. And I kind of like know the process of that. So things like that like really kind of like personally excite me and nerd out about. But I've been thinking about this piece in particular, also just because of like everything the US is going through right now. And then like thinking about, kind of like Kennedy's speech in the 60s about like, we're going to go land on the moon. And this thing that's like impossible, that no one knows really how to do. And, and through human achievement, it happened. And so I think I'm interested, I like kind of thinking about that in reference, like in order to be successful, you have to have your failures. I think about that a lot in this piece. And you have to learn from those. And then also just like hope, like what can we do? And I think we're like always still learning from that, and like just what we all can do as a community. So I think I'm like interested in that, and that's kind of like one of my favorite pieces that we live with, and I kind of think about those ideas a little bit when I look at these.
I love that. I think that that is like such a good, I feel like we've talked about this a few times with like print or just like artworks in general, like trying to like bridge a gap between different processes, but
Hmm.
then also that like as a creator you're often trying to just like prod certain parts of being human, and failure is a big part of that. Like I feel like as artists you just have to become so comfortable with failure in, trying to produce something that maybe doesn't work out and then like adapting to accept that and work within it. Failure in terms of like accepting rejection and hearing feedback and criticism and trying to turn that into something that's productive and like pushes your
Hmm.
work further. um yeah, I think that like that is a really challenging but beautiful part about what we all do, and um yeah, it can be so useful. And then to like, yeah, see a work that kind of explores that visually is also really nice.
Yeah. So that's the first one, but
I love
Wait,
it.
yeah,
so like,
yeah,
is it like a three-dimensional object, or is it just like a
yeah.
2D drawing?
No, it's three-dimensional. So you can like see
Oh,
this is like a shadow box frame. So
Yeah.
it's probably about 2 or 3 inches deep, and I believe this is like adhesed on with some glue. So I think that's like what I was talking about. Like it does a great job of blurring that line of what is 3D and what is 2D, and like what can you even put on paper, too, of like you can just glue some rocket ships to paper. I think that's awesome.
there's an artist, I forget his name, but there's a documentary on Netflix, and maybe somebody knows what his name is. He's very famous, and he does like kind of like explosion art. So he'll I think on Netflix it's about a piece that he did that was like a bunch of fireworks that created a ladder up
Yeah, yeah,
into
yeah.
the
I know you're
sky.
talking about. Yeah.
But he would do these like mini explosion drawings where he would have all these like, I don't know if they were all fireworks. It's been a while since I watched this documentary, but like, so it'd be a giant sheet of paper with all these little explosive devices on top of it, and then some kind of like protection and like keep everything close down, and then they would light it all, and the image would be made by like the kind of the aftermath of like the explosion, which I just love that
Oh, neat.
so much. It's just such a
Yeah.
like wild way of making an image, and yeah.
Yeah. Bouncing off that real quick, I know one of the artists at the new museum they opened here, called the Momentary, like one of the logos they had like chiseled out and then they filled it back in and then they also like packed explosives in it and like blew the logo out. So like thinking about that, like how you like can draw like that. Yeah, I think that's really interesting as well.
Weird.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
exploring material. I love that.
Yeah.
All of our pieces today are just straight up prints. We also have something in a frame, so hopefully it will not be too. Maybe Kyle will take it out.
I'll pop it in.
So I decided I picked all the work today because Kyle is working away on a project that we're hoping we will be able to share with everybody either this weekend or early next week.
Hmm.
So I went with a bit of a theme of it's close to Halloween. So I
Nice.
picked a bunch of work that is like either like directly Halloween themed or indirectly. So this is an indirect, but this is an etching that was done by a friend of ours, Devon Derose, and I don't know if she's really making a lot of work these days, but for a period of time she was making a lot of paintings, and she came to do a few different etching workshops with us. So this is just a little test print from like one of the etching workshops. And so it's just a hard ground etching, so she was mostly just like playing around, but she would make a lot of work that was kind of exploring like nature and animals in nature. And I don't know for certain because I've never really talked too in depth with Devon about like what the imagery is about. But for me, like a lot of her animals, as you can see, are like kind of like they're very scary looking, but they also have these
Yeah.
like hearts all around them. so it's sort of this like cross between like intimidating, unknown forms that sort of resemble animals that you could imagine being in your vicinity. So like a wolf or coyote or bunny, that are like drawn in this sort of aggressive, uncomfortable, like they have too many legs, their bodies don't make any sense. But then they're also surrounded by like just these sort of like, I don't know, they like remind me of like doodling as like a high school student in the edge of my paper, just like random hearts and stars and, you know, things that are like easy to draw but also kind of comforting. And I've always loved this piece. We have it hanging up in our house, even though it was just a test. You know, she was just kind of like playing around with mark making and seeing, you know, how lightly can I draw? Will that still transfer? How do I get like a good dark space? You know, what you normally do when you're playing around with etching for the first time. But yeah, I just love it. I love this piece so much. I love the weirdness of it. I love the wildness of it. And I thought it was a good kind of like spooky share. And I hope that Devon's still making work, because her paintings were just so great.
It's so tiny against this giant piece.
I know, it is tiny. We always have people start with really small prints, even though they really want to be like making some giant piece of copper. And we're like, so here's the thing. Copper's really expensive. This process takes a long time. And if you do something you don't like,
there's no going back.
That's what you get. So, you know, maybe we'll start with something that's about this big and you can get familiar with the process.
My instant take on that is I feel like, you know, Halloween season, I think we've been watching like a bunch of horror movies as well, and like just like that thing where like the kids like in the corner drawing and they're like, what are you drawing? And like I'm just, you know, I kind of get that vibe a little bit.
And you're like, oh no, do we need to talk about what this might mean? Yeah, a little bit, that for sure.
Cool.
I just also love like etching and the marks that you can get out of it. And it's been a long time since I've made an etching, so I think I'm just like hungry for that imagery right now.
I'm hungry for etching as well. I wish it was easier to have an acid bath in your home. So
well, sure. I mean, there's other ways to etch a plate.
I know,
you don't have to have acid.
I know.
My favorite is the mop, sink, and car battery.
Yeah, get on.
Okay. I will show you now my second piece.
Love it.
Ooh. I got this one in my last year of my MFA. I got to go do a residency in Berlin for 3 months, which I felt was super amazing experience. I actually don't know this artist. I was going to do some research and then ran out of time a little bit. So maybe I can spend some time looking and I can send you that. But I have a couple works by this artist. This is a screen print.
What?
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
Wow.
And so
Nice.
it's made up of it's hard to see in here, but this is a silver right here.
Okay.
This is a black, and the white is just the paper. And basically what this artist did is you like walked into a room. It was probably like an 8-foot by 8-foot room, and it was filled with like 5 or 6 images. This is one of them. But like floor to ceiling. So those were just like repeating images, and this artist would flood their screen and then print on it and then like wait a minute or two and then pull another print, and basically kept printing until the ink dried up or froze in the screen. So each image would like slowly degrade. So he would print maybe like 50 to 100 of these. And this is just like one of them I got. And I have another one here that you can see. And like some of this right here on this like landscape part, like that's like him dripping water like into the screen a little bit, those little like blowouts.
Yeah.
So I really like that idea again of like print being more like one of these is just like beautiful on its own and has its own merits, definitely. And then another part of it just being like using this to create an installation, like a whole room installation. There was a part of this show I didn't understand where he like created this giant metal dolphin and it like spun as well.
Okay.
So don't know what that part was about, but I love this. I love the printmaking. I really responded to that, and I talked to him a little bit. So I need to go back and look at this. It was like a little pop-up gallery, and see if I can find it in Berlin. But I got 2 of these, and I think they're just like a really amazing use of screen print. And I'm always like love doing, you know, halftone dots, and like whenever I get to teach screen print, like teaching people about you know, like printing and how you can like trick the eye with just putting these type of dots and lines and all of that. And I think this does a really good job, and like it's so hard to keep like screens from blowing out when you do that. And so like when I like look at this, there's like hardly any blowouts. So this guy did a really good job. And yeah, it's black and white too, so it's like a nice.
It's a really rad way of like approaching screen print because it's like it's like something I've never been able to do is monotyping. Like I'm not that kind of person, and this is like weird because screen print is like all about like cheap, high volume, and repeatability, and this is none of those things.
Yeah.
Like it is a one-off. Like you would never be able to recreate this, and like the textures that this artist is getting is like pretty rad.
Yeah, and so I thought it was really cool. Like he only had like 5 images that he repeated, but he repeated them like 100 times in this room, and like each one would be individual. So like the actual image base that this piece is made up of, the one next to it like looks different, or you know, because like the lines continue to freeze out and blow, and then it's like this thing of distortion that just happens. So I really love that in like terms of printmaking. Like you can start, you know, like all of us have like. For me, like the way I make work and all that, you know, is very like technical, and I cut out all these stencils and make it, and you like it's definitely like moments of OCD of like, and having to, you know, realize that it's an imperfect process, and, you know, you try and make it perfect on the computer, and then your hand always is a little bit imperfect, and like that balance. And I think if an artist can learn how to like, find joy in that and just like make it interesting, I'm always like really excited about that because like I struggle with that. And so I think that's
that screen print with you guys, because I'm definitely a lot more like whatever, like we're human beings, we're not robots. If we wanted this printed by a robot, we wouldn't do this process because this is a waste of time. And you guys are like, because Landon and I printed like a good portion of the like initial layers, and then at the like last one where like the key was going over, so the black line work that like kind of brought everything together, Landon very politely said like, I think Kyle and I should work on this.
Yeah.
You guys spent like who even knows how long.
Yeah. I remember we troubleshooted like 3 or 4 times before we ran the edition. And even then I was like, I'm not really like 100% satisfied, but I think like, you know, like I think we lucked out a little bit where like the paper was, since we like printed on it so much on one day, had like expanded and then it like contracted back. And I was like, whew. So, and I know Chrissy was like, who cares? So.
I was like, we're not charging enough to be like this intensive and like 10-layer print made by 3 separate people. You know what though? I've just been getting so many emails about the like millimeter white line between, you know, the plug and the...
I know. It still keeps me up at night. So when I look at it too.
But I think what's nice about this type of work is that with so many pieces of art, like process is such a mystery to the people that are experiencing what the work is.
Yeah.
And what's lovely about shows like this is it's the artist trying to, in some way, like show the viewer a bit of the behind the scenes of that process.
Yeah.
And to demonstrate like in a visual way that's like beautiful and interesting to look at the like technical elements of creating work in this way. Like it does seem like it should be kind of like a factory like experience, but when you're pulling an image by hand through a screen and you're dealing with like, you know, the humidity in the air, the heat of the room, the, you know, viscosity of the ink, the mesh count of the screen, like there's all these little variables that are going to influence how that image actually looks on the paper. So even if you did this exact same process, but like you took this one image and you use like a different mesh count, then like you could see like how that impacts the like look and feel of the work. I feel like there's so many different ways that you could explore this particular process, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, definitely. I think every time I look at this piece, I just get excited where I'm like, oh, I should approach printmaking in a new way. Like, it just like, you know, I think that should always be one of our thoughts because it's really easy, you know, to have your practice and kind of get in a routine. And how do you constantly work trying to approach it from new angles?
So like doing a work like this is like a weird specific skill. Like you can try to emulate it, but like unless you've been doing it for a long time, like you're not. I could never emulate this because I just don't work like this, and I don't have that confidence and that ability to be loose with my mark making, to have that faith that like it'll turn out in the end. Like I would overcomplicate making a print like this so bad.
I could see it, yeah.
All right. So. Our next share, sticking with our theme, is a piece by Kyle, and I'll just let Kyle talk about it.
This is a black and white photopolymer plate relief print called Devil Deal. It is part of a show that we put together for an Ex Libris show. For those people who do not know what an Ex Libris is a book plate. Back in like the early 1900s, late 1800s, and any century before that, when you owned a library and you owned books, you would have like on the inside cover this the library of so-and-so. And so it was kind of like an ownership. And so I made these ones. I can't remember. I think it was 2016. Yeah. And so like this was like kind of like I did a bunch of research on like Ex Librises, and there was like a weird scenario where like a lot of Ex Librises kind of around the like turn of the century started having like imagery of like skeletons and like devils, and like it started becoming like book plates started becoming like weirdly sexualized. And so I kind of kept in with a little bit of that theme, and I made this little guy.
Did you print that on a press?
Yeah, so it is a plate that we made with photopolymer, and it's mounted into. We use the Vandercook, which makes everything very much so easy. So with this process, what this is the polymer plate is this like it's about like 1/8 of an inch, 3/16 of an inch thick, and it's this like orange yellowy like solid. And you take a stencil. And you take the plate and you sandwich it together, and then you blast light, and whatever on that stencil is black will prevent the light from hitting the plate, and whatever is clear will touch the plate. And so the plate hardens to ultraviolet light, so whatever is exposed will turn into this solid mass. And then once it's exposed, you wash it out. And so all of this white stuff kind of that is the parts that were blocked out from the plate, and so when you wash it, those spots are lower on the plate, the valleys of your relief block, and the blacks are the peaks.
Nice. Speaking of like Halloween movies, we're on this theme also. I'm getting the witch vibes off of that. So
Totally. Yes.
Yeah.
That was a good one. Not as scary as I was anticipating, but good.
Yeah.
I watched 1922 the other day. Also not.
You also
very
watched
scary.
Hocus Pocus.
Well, I'm not. That wasn't the other day. I've been watching all sorts of. I watched Hocus Pocus with my nieces.
So we made this little show, and then we like traveled it around to a couple different places. I can't remember how many hours. I think there's about 20 some odd. Was it 20?
Maybe close to
Something
that.
like
Yeah.
That.
Mm-hmm.
It was a nice little project. So like we kind of like asked a lot of like artists working within Ontario to participate. So everyone kind of submitted 1 or 2 book plates, and then we sent it off to like a library. We added a gallery here.
In a gallery in Peterborough. Yeah, it was a rare books library at Queen's, which was fun because they pulled out, I don't know if you already said this, a bunch of like actual authentic old book plates that they had that were like woodcuts. We got to like wear little gloves and look through these beautiful old book plates. Oh, I loved that. It was great. If you're ever in Kingston, Ontario, the Douglas Library has like a rare books collection on like one of the floors. Floor? Yeah, it's so lovely.
It's like one of these underappreciated spaces. Like when we were going to university, I remember like the Douglas Library existed. It was like notorious. It was noted for the 4th floor. It felt like a Harry Potter film. Like it had these big peaked ceilings and all these desks, and like you went there to study. And it was like kind of after university that I discovered that they actually have like a really killer rare book library.
Mm-hmm. And like old printing presses and stuff that nobody ever told us existed before. So yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, on to the last one I have. This one's smaller. These 2 are pretty big, I'm realizing.
It's nice though. Big work.
Yeah.
Ours are tiny.
This last one is a painting, an acrylic painting by an artist named Justin Santora out in Chicago. I got this one actually at I'm blanking right now, but the flat file, it was at Pitchfork. But Justin Santora is a really amazing printmaker. And he also does these, a couple, I think, paintings a year. Really beautiful. This is from, I think, like an alternative version of like his band album, but I am just like in love with this, and like it's really fine. You can see the pencils, and you can see the acrylic. I think of this one a lot like the painter Robert Ryman, who just did is famous for his like white paintings, but then just did all of these kind of just studies of just material, like it's just about the material coming together, and that I kind of think about that a little bit when I look at this work, and it just reminds me a lot of growing up in the South and like growing up around kind of these places of decay and farming a little bit. My grandfather actually used to be an old tobacco farmer, and so like there's just like a lot of this kind of like history I associate with this type of material, and I just feel very fortunate to be able to get this like painting. I saw it at his booth he was selling, and I like geeked out, and I was like, I don't have the money for this, but like if I can get this, I will send you like payments as I get them. Like I was like, so this was like one of those moments where I was like, I don't have the money for this, but I really like appreciate this work and love it. And luckily he let me do that.
I feel like it's always worth asking,
Yeah, I was like the worst. Yeah, I feel like the worst thing that will happen a lot is like they'll say no, and then so.
And like as an artist, if somebody approached me and was like, I can't afford this, like of course I'm going to be like, yeah, you can pay me in installments.
Yeah, like we'll finance that. That's cool.
You want to buy that from me? Yeah, I'll figure out how to like take your money, like a couple dollars this month, couple dollars next month, any way I can.
Yeah.
But this was when I was in Chicago, I think in 2015, like also during my MFA studying like under Jay Ryan at the Bird Machine Press, like learning more about, you know, how editions like are made and gig posters, and learning about that history. Flat stock is what it's called, by the way. It just came to me at Pitchfork.
Cool.
So I knew him originally as a printmaker, and he makes still unbelievably like complicated prints. I think I've probably shown you guys like when I've had you over, and like I'm still like, how do you do that? And I got to see his studio real quick, and like I think got coffee with him, and he is like one of like I think one of the like most underrated printmakers in my opinion. Like every time I see his work, I'm like, what? How did you do that? And it's just like something where he has an amazing work ethic where he just like can continue to crank out all of this work. And I'm like, I think as me and Kyle, who are very like technical printmakers and like spend a lot of time on our drawings before we'll like let anyone see them or let them see the light of day, he seems like someone who can just like crank out that level of work like it's nothing. And I'm always like, what? So
I am so envious of people that can do that. That have like just that kind of, I guess, like that freedom to do that within their practice. Like I just overwork everything, and I think way too much. But like, you know, like looking at like the second chair you had, where it was more about kind of process and about these like kind of accidental things, and like I wish I could work like that, because like I really love this kind of work. This reminds me of, I think the last SGCI we went to, there was a screen print demo, and I can't remember what the guy's name was, but it was just like this big screen print of like a kind of like a swooshing mark. It kind of just looked like a giant, like he took a giant paintbrush and just went. But then he starts talking about it, and it's like, okay, it's like this 17 color screen print, and I'm like, oh, this is crazy. I love how like sometimes like things that look so simple, like what this looks like is like one of those bamboo brushes that's just like, whoop. But like I know it's not just that simple, but it comes across, and I think there's an elegance when people can pull that off, and it looks. I'm always attracted to that kind of thing. Yeah. I like this work.
Yeah. It's good. The close-ups are always really nice too, because like from a distance, it's a completely different image than when you're like looking at the detail and seeing those like numbers in that one area.
Or just like these white strokes right here. I'm always like, what? You know,
like
there's some
stepping back and looking at it, it looks like a giant brush, but when you come up close, like, you know, that 150 that's written into the side there, like that's, you know, that's very deliberate. Like it's not just like a giant brush that whoop, like
it's super nice.
I imagine it's a whole bunch of like little brush marks that have come together to make the illusion of like a big fat wide brush.
And as me and Chrissy, we talked earlier, it's like, I don't know how to finish a painting. So anytime I see a finished painting on top of that, I'm like, whoa, this person did it. They figured it out.
Oh, if anybody else has a hard time finishing paintings or knowing when a painting is finished, write us in. Let's commiserate together.
P.O. box, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, we don't have a P.O. box, but our address is on the internet. So one day, maybe we'll regret that. But right now, this is our last share. And I love this print so much. Everything about it is the best.
So this is by an artist that lives here in this area. His name is Peter Mennacher. He was a German lawyer to begin with who worked with artists, and through that he met a printmaker, an etcher in particular, Nicholaus Arnold, who taught Peter how to do etching. And then so in like Peter's latter part of his life, like he has become like an etcher. He's got a really, really like funny and quirky narrative about how he goes about drawing things, and I am a big fan of his work. And so this is an etching. It is just a straight hard ground. So
it's called Dog Halloween.
Oh,
I just love it. Like, look at this guy. He was like, oh, I thought it was a birthday party. Whoops.
Yeah, the sweater on the right there. That sweater. I love that.
Yeah, it's just it makes me so happy, this print. And I love when art can just like make you smile.
Yeah, it's very whimsical.
He has a very whimsical style, and like when he talks about it, like he'll like reference like Dante's Inferno and like these old literary works, and like kind of just this like the narrative that he puts into his work, like it's serious. He's like a German printmaker, but it's also like wonderfully comical.
Yeah.
And just like the textures, and it's just one hard ground, there's no added little elements. It's beautiful in its simplicity. I love the plate haze in the background, so it just like gives it this little atmosphere, like they went to a Sears and they had one of those simple soft gray textured backgrounds behind them. I don't know, it just makes me so happy.
Yeah, if you like, it's also interesting if you look at the fur like a little closer, like each animal's got its own like little kind of fur pattern that's unique. That's nice.
I like this little skeleton dog.
Yeah.
That still has hairy ears.
Yeah, it's really creepy.
That pumpkin though, that's great also. But,
yeah, I just like, I've been wanting to show this one for a while, but it made sense to wait until now because thematically it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
I like this one a lot.
Also just etching, it's just like in an etching kind of mood.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it's such a nice process. Like the little embossment from the plate feels so good, and I love the way the marks come out and the like sharp lines on the like edge of their bodies, but then the soft, it does feel soft, the texture of their fur.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Dog Halloween.
Yeah. I feel like I want to wipe a plate down right now, but I can't.
I mean, I have a bunch of plates outside that I've been like waiting to print. Waiting for what? I don't know. They're sitting out there. I have paper, I have ink, I have a press. They're waiting for me to get my ass into the studio and actually do the work. That's, I guess, what's happening.
Yeah.
But
see, I get her just like wipe a plate down. Singular. Like 1 to 5, but like after like the 10th, you're like, oh, this is laborious. Like,
I'm over this.
Yeah. Yeah. But I painted, I finished a very like not long necessarily, but long in terms of just like the project kept having to be put on pause. Mural project. And it was raining the one day I went, and I was like, oh, this is going to be awful. Like, I have to be outside. It's raining. It's cold. But then I, like, put on podcasts, and, 4.5 hours just vanished. You get lost in it, which is, I think I forget that a lot of times. I'll get in my head, like, okay, I have to go do something in the studio. Oh, like, do I have the energy? Am I in the right mindset for this? Am I going to bring the right attitude to this space?
1:30, by the time I set up and clean up, I'll have to make dinner, I'll just wake up early tomorrow and I'll start. And then like you never wake up early the next day and you never get going on it.
Yeah, but then when you're like, okay, I just have to do this, then it's like always surprising to me how easily like time can just totally melt. And you look at your watch and you're like, holy shit, it's been 5 hours and I haven't had anything to drink.
Yeah. And I think I get that feeling a lot. I haven't done a woodcut in a while, but I remember just doing a few woodcuts, and then you like get up and you're like, cool, I drew 2 inches by 2 inches and carved that out, and it felt like you'd carved like a road out or something like that.
Yeah. I think my friend Jenna and I did a woodcut project that was like an 8-foot by 4-foot sheet of plywood. It was for like a steamroller event. And we were like taking our time and like really like, we would have these days out in the sun carving and we had like plotted it out, and then of course, things get in the way, and you're like, oh, okay, well, we still have lots of time, like we can, we have to do these other projects, we'll do that. And then, as per usual, you're like the night before,
the 11th hour.
Yeah, we're like outside with like construction floodlights on us. And like carving till our hands were like not able to be normal hands anymore.
Yeah.
So we just had to like commit so many hours because we had like left a giant portion of this image until the last minute. It was like mosquitoes, moths dying on the construction lights, and we're just outside trying so hard. And then you're like, you do the event and you look like garbage because you didn't eat properly and you stayed up too late, and there's like press there being like, what's your work about? And you're like, I'm so tired, I'm not gonna eat. Like, Photoshop out all the bags and the tears, please.
Yeah. And then you got to use like a few high vocabulary words too, definitely. So
it's about the juxtaposition and okay.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us on Flat Files.
I know. I'm so glad. This is like a perfect time because I get a day off today, and that rarely happens.
Oh,
so,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
I know. I'm super excited. No, it's because I've been building the past 2 weeks like 10 Donald Judd crates for that had to be like hermetically sealed, and like they treated the copper and all that. Speaking of like wiping down copper etching, like and all of that, and really interesting side note, just working with a conservator, learned more about like Donald Judd. So like if like someone comes up and puts like a fingerprint on it, like over time, like it'll etch into the copper, and like us as printmakers, not that big of a deal. You just, wipe it off type of deal. And so like working on that and getting them like treated down, all you can do is just like keep taking the copper down. So it's like kind of a destructive process to make it look brand new. So I found that really interesting.
Gosh.
Like over time, that like if a Judd just keeps getting worse, all you can do is just keep taking the copper down. And like I just think about that like in 100 or 200 years, like will that exist if you keep doing it? So
just like wear the work into nothing.
Yeah. So I've been doing that for the past 2 weeks, and now I'm here and got the day off. So super excited I could spend that with you.
If there's ever a time we can like, spend a day at work with you,
I know.
I don't know if you're allowed to do that, but if
I'm not.
Game,
I wish. Fun. I wish. I've tried. We've even had like some other teams, and I can't like let them into our vaults. It's like a security issue and all that. But museums. It's really fun. Yeah, museums.
They're so intense.
Lock and key and all of that.
That barrier between like the public space and the vault space. Like I would love to hang out in a vault for a while.
Yeah, it's still like one of the things I look forward to the most in the job is that like you can not be having a great day just like anyone does on work, and then you can just like pull out a painting, and it's not like, oh, it's this painting. It's just like, oh, there's a Warhol, and there's a Rauschenberg, and like all of these things. And so it's always like so it's really always a great time to just study other people's work too, like up close, that no one else gets to do. So that's like a little side note.
That is a very fun part of what you do. I'm sure there's lots of other parts that are like, this is very stressful.
Definitely.
Wow, I can't believe I'm responsible for moving this. What happens if it goes bad?
Definitely.
What's the liability insurance on this? Do they cover it, or do I? What's the
I've learned a lot about that. It's been very interesting. So
oh my gosh. Well, it's always lovely talking to you, and
always a pleasure.
Things that you have tucked away in your house because you have such a wonderful art collection.
Hey, thanks so much. I always enjoy getting together with you guys and talking, and hopefully next time it will be in person. Somewhere down in the line in the future.
Fingers crossed. Yeah. All right. Well, have a lovely rest of your Friday and a great weekend. And thanks everybody who joined us. And talk.
So good to chat with you. Miss you.
So good to chat. See you guys. Miss you. Bye.
Bye.